Good morning and welcome to our Bible through the year, as today we arrive at the book of Amos. Amos is the 8th century BC. Imagine a world before even those great Greek thinkers were around. A society that's largely illiterate, quite tribal and savage in lots of ways. And this kind of drama takes place in up north, and the northerners in Israel, and they kind of thought, well, we've moved away from, the superstitious kind of ultra religiousness of the world down south, where all of that is going on, and we're okay up here doing our own thing. This is living in a world where after the time of Solomon, the kingdom is divided into two. You've got Judah in the south with its capital Jerusalem. You've got the northern kingdom of Israel, its capital in Samaria. And this is the world that Amos comes from. Amos is a farmer and a fruit picker from the village of Tekoa, which is in Judah, in the southern kingdom. And he is called to bring this word, the word of the Lord, to the people of Israel, to the people in power, because, in many ways, Israel as a kingdom at this time was at its most religious. It was at its most kind of, in terms of ceremony, in terms of ritual and things like that, it's most religious. But what it had going against it was that it was kind of socially very divided and corrupt. The poor were treated terribly. The kind of working class, poor agricultural people had their backs broken by a corrupt and a overindulgent wealthy upper class. And this is the kind of world in which Amos speaks, but it's like a road sweeper turning up at Buckingham Palace. That's the kind of thing. And he's got a really interesting message, Amos, a really interesting way of doing it, because he turns up and he begins, and you'll see this at the start, with a list of faults against the kind of enemies and neighbours of Israel. And you can almost see him, bringing this judgment. I've got a word from God, and these guys who are next door, they're awful, and these guys are really awful. And he works his way through, and you can almost hear the kind of, here, yes, well done, as he goes through the list of Israel's neighbours and enemies, and then he comes to Judah, and the cheers, and then he comes to Israel in chapter 2. He comes to Israel, I think verse 6, and the silence then would have been thunderous. This silence is suddenly the real, we're in that list. We are on the receiving end. We are in the dock, as God is bringing this judgment against not just our neighbours, but against us as well. And, this is the real challenge for them. The rich people that God is saying are living, yes, super religious lives, but they're not living out the values of the covenant. They're not living out who I have called them to be. There's even the kind of rich women, the posh women that he speaks about in there as well. And this kind of comes to a head in chapter 5, where God is talking about their religious worship. And this is what he says in Amos chapter 5, verse 21. So he says, I hate your festivals, these, religious festivals. I hate your festivals. I take no delight in your solemn assemblies. Even though you bring me burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. And the offerings of well-being and your fatted animals, I will not look upon them. Take away from me the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the melody of your harps, but let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a never failing stream. That last bit of course, was famously quoted by Dr. Martin Luther King when he was talking about the inequality and the prejudice of life in the 1950s and 60s in America, and segregation and the mistreatment of black people. And he said, yeah, sympathy's great and all these kind of things, but what we want is justice. Let justice roll down like a river and righteousness like a never failing stream. And that's what God is saying. Yeah, your religiousness, your festivals, your music, your religious observance, I don't want to hear them, because you're not living right. You're not living in the way that I've called you to live. You're not being faithful to the call of who I've called you to be. You're not, if you think about the Ten Commandments, don't take the name of the Lord your God in vain. And most of us take that to mean don't say, oh my God, or Jesus Christ, or things like that. But actually, the word means to carry, from the root of the word to carry. Don't carry the name of the Lord your God in vain. In other words, when you carry that name, the name of a Christian in the world, don't do that in vain. Don't pay lip service to it, but don't live in a way that is opposite to the values and the culture of the kingdom. And so we can find ourselves in this position that the people of Israel did at the time of Amos, of saying, well, I've ticked the box of religious observance. I go to church. I don't take the name of the Lord my God in vain. I don't say, oh my God, when I'm shocked about something. But I'm not carrying the name of the Lord in the way that he's called me to in the world. I don't stand up for the rights of the poor and the oppressed. I don't work for the equaling of society. And this isn't socialism. This is gospel kingdom truth. It's not anti-rich, but it's pro everybody being lifted to a place of fairness and a lack of one person lording over another person. And this is what society looks like when it's functioning healthily. And this was not the case in 8th century BC Israel, that Amos comes and speaks into that. So there's a challenge for us in our society about our religious observance. Is it simply that we go to church and we tick the box, but actually in terms of what we live for and how we live, are we carrying the name of the Lord in a way that makes a difference? Or is it simply about religious observance? Is our life living out justice and righteousness? Or is it simply about religious observance? And so I pray that as we read this together, as we grapple with these issues together, the Lord would speak those words to us as well about how we're living, how we're choosing to live for him in the world, and whether or not we need the road sweeper, prophet, fruit picker to come and speak those words into our hearts, that we might return to the Lord and we might live as the people he's calling us to be as well. And as you go on that journey in the next couple of days, may the Lord bless you.